Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Mindful Place Summit. Today, we have the opportunity to speak with Tamara McLellan. She's a solo mama who spends most of her time in the forest with her son. She runs Wild Breath, whose mission is to regenerate the wilderness within, as well as Wild Sky Sisters for empowerment and unconditional love and guidance from the cosmos. Thanks so much for watching. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Mindful Place Summit. I'm super excited. We've got Tamara McLellan here to talk to you today. And thank you so much for coming to join us in this conversation. I am really excited to learn more about what you do and how you got involved with studying the cosmos. So my first question is, let us know who you are and, what got you into this work?
I am Tamara. I am a mama to a 4-year-old. I have been in Kelowna for about 8 years now. And so that has increased my exploration of nature and my desire and ability to be outside. And so I've just spent so much time outside. I work with a organization called the Wildcraft Forest, and so that has helped increase some of my awareness around the ways that nature helps us and brought me a lot to the cosmos, which I'll talk about, I'm sure, after this. And then I also run two businesses. One is called Wild Breath, and it is a mindfulness, kind of pairing mindfulness and nature based company. And then I have Wild Sky Sisters, which is unconditional love from the cosmos.
I love that. And I actually received a special gift from you over the holidays and had a reading. So I really appreciated that. And when I listened to what you had, even me saying that right now, I get goosebumps.
That
So
was
it
so
was really beautiful to see how the energy is working for me, and for somebody like yourself who doesn't necessarily know me, underneath all my layers, you were right on point. So I needed to share that because
love
like
that.
I was telling my partner, I'm like, you got to listen to this because she absolutely is right on point. So there's something to be said about, working with, higher faculties and the stars in the universe and the cosmos to really kind of shape shift where we're
No, I
at.
have goosebumps. Totally. Absolutely. That is exactly higher faculties. That's like the best way I've heard it put. That's exactly what it is. It's
Yeah.
so much more. The other day we heard someone say that they're a psychic disguised as an astrologer. And for me, that's what my sister really is. For me, it's like I'm also like a cheerleader disguised as an astrologer, or like
I
a
love that.
motivational speaker or something disguised as an astrologer.
Beautiful. So I'm a parent and I'm an educator like yourself as a parent. So how can we utilize and allow the cosmos to support us in our daily life?
Yeah, good question. I truly think as a single mama that astrology has helped me parent and helped me be more open to all the things that come up as parenting as a spiritual practice, which it really is for me. It's the deepest spiritual path I've ever walked, and I've done a lot of yoga training and lots of different kind of spiritual paths, but yeah, having a 4-year-old is truly a spiritual practice, and astrology and just really leaning more into my relations with all things nature, all things universal, the way that we are so loved and supported by unseen forces,
Yeah.
has helped strengthen my relationship with my son. It's more also like helped me to turn inwards and see how I am being influenced by things in my environment and how that might then show up in a projection towards my son and to his dad as we try to consciously co-parent. And to be honest, I moved out on my own when he was 4 months old, and was feeling like I really needed elders, like I really needed mentors, something to love me and guide me through that process. And we moved up to a mountain cabin, and we lived literally, like, I felt like right underneath the stars for about 5 months. And in that time, I realized that the stars and the trees were our elders, and that's who was holding me. And so being able to tap into that, I know I have goosebumps everywhere. I'm just like
I
watching
keep
around.
going. Yes.
Being able to tap into that, being able to, the one time that you get to take a wild breath, is like at bedtime, right? Your child falls asleep and you finally, the craziness of the day is kind of over, and just going out and looking out the window and seeing one star can change everything, right? And just feeling that connection of like, okay, there's something so much bigger here that we are doing as parents, as educators, like anybody in the beautiful role of stewarding little people's lives. And to feel that connection, it just, to me, it's like it's overwhelmingly one of the best tools that I've seen to be in co-creation with the world around us.
So beautiful. When you talk and you use the words like that breath, right? That moment where they are peacefully sleeping and you can just take that moment for yourself. And my question is like, where do you start? I mean, you talk about this like this energy, there's so much stuff greater happening around us than where we currently are, so that could seem overwhelming for some, right, where it's like, hey, I'm just focusing in on that one star or that one breath and I really connect with that. But for somebody that wants to dig a little deeper, it's like, where do they go and start? And I know you've definitely got a resource that you're going to provide to our listeners, and I don't know if that's the starting point, but I'm going to just
Mhm.
ask that because for somebody like myself who does feel connected, there is so much more out there, right? And where do I kind of start with that?
Yeah, that's a really good point, because honestly, during the year 2020, as the pandemic scaled up, astrology exploded because so many astrologers called that there was going to be something far before it happened. And I think that like the entire year was full of these like landmines for people. So our consciousness was just exploding and everyone started to kind of see this. So there are so many resources now for astrology. Obviously, like we go to places like Instagram to find people. Some of the greatest accounts to follow would be Channing Nicholas. She's like this beautiful woman who it has just got herself dialed into what is happening in the sky, and she leaves a lot of info. One of my teachers, Jana Romer, runs Attune to the Moon, beautiful resource. The information coming from her is so huge. And then my sister and I run Wild Sky Sisters, and we are really focusing on helping beginners, like beginners, people who like don't know and they're like, what does all of this mean? That is who we're focusing on helping so that they can start to get to the point where it's like they feel it in their bodies or through the elements, because the stars and the constellations all have elements, like elemental archetypes that they work through. And so we're really focused on trying to help people feel it in their bodies, and before they limit themselves to what the astrology is telling them. And so any three of those are great resources, I think, for kind of starting your journey. But the report that we're going to give the listeners is called the Moon and Mercury Report. So everyone knows their sun sign. That's like, everyone just, that's what we've all gone off of for so long, is that 30-day window that we were born. And the sun sign is our essence and how we shine literally to the world. So I wouldn't, say that knowing that is detrimental. It's like so wonderful. But now people are starting to open up and see that there are many other planetary energies in our solar system that impact us, like on a purely magnetic level, an elemental level. And so the moon has become much more in our awareness. And a lot of people, for the last couple of years, like there's been so many people have been doing new moon and full moon ceremonies. The moon is really, it's a luminary, right? But it reflects the sun's light to us. It's not actually lit up itself. And so it's almost like it's what we need to be seen and be heard, just the way that it feels that from the sun. And there's this beautiful dance between the luminaries in our life through that position of the sun shining onto the moon. And so the moon sign is a great place for people to go to next. And you can, on our website, plug in your birth information and find out where was the moon in the sky when you were born. And that helps to give information. It will be a rabbit hole, I will just say that. You can go down so many pieces of that. It's like, I'm a Capricorn moon and I've been studying astrology for probably 5 years, and I'm still getting nuggets every single time the moon is in Capricorn, which is every single month, right? Because just like women's cycles, it's a 28-day cycle that the moon goes through each sign. So it's about 2.5 days in each sign. So every month the moon goes through Capricorn. And every month I get downloads about what that means for me and what my emotional needs are. And it just really is that tool for reflection. Like astrology is a tool. It's not meant to be, again, telling us who we are. It's meant to validate how we already feel. And it's another tool that shows up, as so many things do in the universe, to mirror us back to ourselves. And so finding out your moon sign, change game changer. And it also can help us to see like what we need to feel self-care and all of those things that are buzzwords in the, especially like parental or educator world. Your moon sign helps you to see that. So for me, Capricorn is a sign that is cardinal earth. It is, so it's an earthy sign. So being in nature makes so much sense to me. Building stuff is another way that I can like release some of my stress and tension, which I had no idea before astrology. I never would have picked up a tool before really knowing that. And I was like, okay, I'll try it, right? Try it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I connect with this on such a huge level. So yeah, the moon sign is one place. And then the other one that I want to make sure that we talk about is Mercury. And people are very aware of Mercury retrograde. That's like a buzzword too, that people are so, like, I think everybody now knows when Mercury is retrograde. Thankfully, it's just out of its shadow period. So Mercury is now direct, and we're all like, hopefully communication's all good. But the best way that I heard someone talk about Mercury is that, at Christmas time, some of us bring offerings to Santa. We bring offerings like, carrots for the reindeer and cookies for Santa. And then we write down a list of what it is that we want. And we engage with this archetype of Santa in our lives. So like, why don't we do that with the gods and the goddesses in the sky? And that's really what the planets are. So Mercury in Greek mythology was Hermes. Hermes, it was the messenger. Hermes flitted around everywhere, giving messages. It was like the newspaper before the days of technology, right? And so Hermes, if we kind of bring the idea of Hermes into our mind, even if you just watch the kids show Hercules, like Hermes has a main role in that, right? And it's like the way that we communicate, the way that we write, the way that we teach, the way that we learn, the way that we receive information, and the way that we give it. And so coming to know our own Mercury sign, which is always pretty close to our sun sign because it doesn't ever go very far from the sun, the more that we can understand on a different level how it is that we might communicate with our children or with the children. And we also then learning ourselves, I would always recommend parent or educator, learn your own signs first, feel it in your body, spend some moon cycles tracking the moon. There's free apps out there you can download. I use iLuna. And it tells you the moon is now entered Virgo, the moon is now entered Taurus. So you get these like notifications and just start to feel that, like, what does that feel like for me? And track that. And then once you're feeling a little bit more comfortable with your own, then I would say check out the major children in your life and get an idea and an understanding of their moon and their Mercury. And then you can really, really tap into, for a child's moon science, like what does this child need to feel validated? And one example I always use is a Leo moon, which my sister is a Leo moon and her daughter is. And a Leo likes to be seen, right? The Leo is like bold lion energy. And a lot of people growing up with children who are very bold and who want to take the attention a lot end up maybe negatively seeing that, like being kind of telling them to like, you're not allowed to shine, or kids are seen, not heard, or all these kinds of words that we say very quickly without thinking about the ramification of that. And that might be true for like a Virgo moon. They might be more in the background wanting to like write and analyze and be working. But for a Leo moon, that's what they actually need, is to be seen. And so giving them a stage,
Absolutely.
so powerful. And being able to like see that that's the way that your child is expressing and literally illuminating from the light of their sun, it helps shift the way that you think about them. Instead of like, oh, that's a needy, attention seeking child, it's like, well, that's a Leo moon. and that is so beautiful. And that is so like validated, and it just really can shift a lot. And then same with the Mercury, like knowing if you knew that that was a Leo Mercury, then you might maybe make more allowance for loud voices, right? Like you might make more allowance for that inside voice to not always even be inside, like just allow that outside voice to be there, and be able to take in that nugget of wisdom that this is the way that they are meant to express.
Absolutely.
So yeah.
Just you talking, I get these thoughts and waves and emotions and feelings. And what's coming to me is, as an educator or a parent, we always hear, oh, it's a full moon, or, we recognize the behaviors in the classroom or what's around us with our own children because we are aware of the moon or the full moon, right? But understanding that we can be aware of the ebb and flow of the other planets, that
Absolutely.
will help us have a better understanding. And instead of just saying, oh, it's a full moon, recognizing, because for a while, it's like I was studying, numerology and understanding that piece of it. But, I guess my question, and if because we've got astrology and then we've got numerology, but it's all kind of based around my understanding around the very similar principles, because it's all around, your natal chart and when you were born and what you were born into. Could you just kind of maybe talk a little bit about that, or the time that you were
Yeah.
born and all that fun stuff?
Well, the best way that I love to describe astrology, like your natal chart being the moment you took that first wild breath in the world, right? That first moment you came through the portal, which is so incredible. And like, and as you did that, it's like this grand crescendo, and all the planets and the moon and the sun were like aligned around you. And it's this snapshot literally of like that moment. And so think of a newborn baby and just how malleable they are. Like that was a lot of planetary energy right at that moment. And my belief is that that's how it is meant to be. Our soul came, but that's why all births are perfect births, because it's like the soul knows what it's coming into form to do. And so the moment it comes into form, that's the natal chart. So I think of it as like a roadmap, and I feel like numerology is very similar, is that it's like your life path, so your birth date, or, even numerology, like the planets each have a number that is associated with them that is very close to these ancient systems of being able to kind of measure archetypes. And I just see them as tools, literally in the tool belt, to be like, because we need clues. Sometimes I think of it as like we're like Hansel and Gretel on the path, right? And like we're like on the path, and there's breadcrumbs being left for us. And every time we look at one of these and study one of these tools, we're like, we get this new insight into like what our soul is we already have it in us, but what our soul is reminding us to do, and to like not stray too far into distractions, which is challenging, so that we can keep coming back to who we are. And who we
Absolutely.
are was present and perfect and enough, literally the moment we took our first breath.
I absolutely love your awareness and this deepened understanding of yourself, because as I'm listening, I keep hearing the more we understand ourselves, the better we can understand those around us, and support those children around us or our spouses or whatever, because we understand what's happening inside of us and we're reflecting amongst the cycles. And maybe there's a certain time, or as you move into a certain planet, that you feel more resistance, right? And could you
Yeah,
tap a little bit about that resistance and why
sure.
that happens naturally?
My natal Mars is trining, sorry, my the transiting Mars in the sky. So there's like your natal chart when you were born and how the planets were all arranged. And then there's transits, like where the planets are right now in the sky. And so astro.com is a place where you can go to just see, you go to their current planets, you can see where everything is. And so there's all these planetary energies when those transiting planets make movements towards our natal planets. And I mean, a full moon is a great example, because that's when the sun is over here and the moon is in opposition to it. And so when two things are in opposition to each other, it can create some friction and tension. And literally the earth's waters start to rise and fall. And we as humans are made up of majority water. And so no wonder our internal waters start to rise and fall, and we feel into that. And so little people are even farther, like more water than we are as
I had
adults.
all my babies during full moons, go
So,
figure, right?
totally, because your body's literally responding with that energy. And so it's like these little people are feeling that so hugely. And so I really watch my son during like the 3 days around the full moon, and try to create moments of how I can soothe him, because I'm like, how must that feel for him without knowing the same regulatory self-regulation methods? How must that feel to have that? And the same thing, like I'll just speak to Mars, because Mars is often our anger. Mars is irritation. Mars is like the warrior and how we take action in our lives. And so when there's stuff happening with Mars in our life, that can be where we see tantrums, or where we see, and like in ourselves too, not just in little people, right? Like I've been known to throw a good tantrum every once in a while. And so allowing space for that, knowing that like, okay, you know, Mars is retrograding. A great example again is 2020. Mars retrograded through Aries, and Aries is where Mars is at home. So like has full power for 6 months. And Mars doesn't usually spend that long in a sign. So the astrology community was on fire, literally, because Aries is cardinal fire. And really seeing this anger and irritation coming out. And so if we just simply know where our Mars is in our charts and how we might express our anger, we know where Mars is, in the sky, we have a little bit more of an edge up on our anger, and we can help give ourselves ways in which we can express it good. And one example is like throwing on some great music and doing like a shake, or having a dance party that day, because you know that you and your child are going to be feeling some energy. So it's like you need to get that out. You throw on a good tune, turn on the party light, and like have a dance, right? And that is all really working with astrology and embodying astrology and trying to find it as a tool again to help us get some of that energy moving in our body.
I love that. I love that. And on your speaker page, we're going to have all of the links below so that our listeners can figure out how to contact you if they're like, yeah, I'd love a reading. Cause I know it's definitely helped me. And I'm even thinking about my children, right? Like my youngest, she is very vivacious and she's a lot louder than the other children.
Right.
And here I was making sure her ears are all checked, took her in, make sure there's nothing going on there. And that's just naturally how she is. But even others have commented, her ear's okay. She's just really loud. And we've come to really value that in her. Or like, okay, she's a negotiator. I'm sure one day she'll be making some good, but having that deeper understanding of who she is from this kind of perspective, I think would really help me move and flow through some of the things that she's moving and flowing through from a deeper awareness. So I absolutely love that. And thank you for sharing. If there's one thing you wanted to leave our guests with today that are listening, what would that be? What would that look like?
Well, I would probably say my favorite astrology quote is by an astrologer named Gemini Brett, who is the coolest cat. He always says he's just like listening to him talk he's just the coolest cat around. And he does sacred astronomy. And so astronomy is something that all children are interested in. I haven't met a child yet who's not interested in the planets. And he really talks about it in such a beautiful, sacred way. But his quote about astrology is that astrology is the poetic breath of nature. So if you think of that, and he actually does like music to channel the different planets and what your cosmic song would be, it's like
Ooh.
next level stuff. But if you really think about that, I mean, astrology, like astronomy, is the science and study of nature just in the sky. And so astrology is this poetic way that it comes out. And it's also like the psychological way that plays out for us. And if there's people out there who maybe are like a little like astrology is a bit woo for them or that kind of thing, I would really suggest checking out Gemini Brett, because he brings and backs it with so much science. And his one thing is that Galileo has been pictured with his natal chart in his hand. It's like, if it's good enough for one of the biggest astronomers of our time, it's good enough for me. So yeah.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing your wonderful juju with all of us. And I look forward to many more connections with you in the future.
Mwah.
All right. Have a good day. Thanks for watching, everyone.